with you every day, live 3 to 5 Eastern Time on SiriusXM, Faction Talk Channel 103, or the SiriusXM app, anytime, live or on demand. Audio, video, and more are there. And thank you for joining me on this Wednesday. And now it is with great pleasure that I welcome to the show, and this is the first time I can ever say this in the many, many, many times this guy has joined us on my radio and or TV shows. This is the first time I am ever doing this. Introducing him as Motley Crue guitarist John 5 joining us right now. Man, does that feel crazy to say.
Hey, Eddie, how are you, buddy?
How do you feel when you hear that, buddy?
It's incredible. It's like a dream, you know? It really is a dream, and I feel like I'm going to wake up one morning and go, turn to my, wife and go, whoa, I had this dream, I was joining Motley Crue and, making all these great concerts and doing all this stuff and people. It was, I feel like I'm dreaming. It really is incredible. It's just an absolute dream come true. And it's, with my great friends, it's with my buddies,
Right. And, and you just happen to be on a giant plane traveling around the world with Def Leppard playing stadiums. It's like, I can imagine it's like a dream.
I know. It's absolutely a dream come true. It really is a dream come true.
Hey, before we get into stuff, I'm curious because our bond since we've been friends is the fact that you're such a music geek like me, and you're a bit younger than the guys in Motley, I believe. So when was the first time as a fan you saw Motley Crue?
Well, the first time I saw Motley was the Theater of Pain tour. Now, I remember when they were coming to town with Ozzy on the Shout the Devil tour, and my mom wouldn't let me go. And, it was downtown Detroit, and she just wouldn't let me go. And I remember thinking to myself, I was in my friend's kitchen thinking, wow, Motley Crue's on stage right now. But the first time I saw him was Theater of Pain. And true story, I was sitting in front of, hold on, that's the phone. I was sitting in front of the speakers, and it was so loud. I mean, when I say it was so loud, and this is the first time it's ever happened to me. It made me nauseous, and I've never gotten nauseous like that. It made me nauseous, and I had to go walk up the stairs and sit down. And then I actually talked to Nikki about this. I was like, man, dude, it was so loud it made me nauseous. What the hell, It's just funny to remember, like, bits and pieces of your, these amazing concerts I went to.
Yeah, I first saw them with Ozzy, and it was it was on Shout at the Devil, if I recall. And I have a photo to this day, because I was just started in radio, and I have a photo of this day of me and Mick backstage, and it's 83 or something like that. And I went on stage with Ozzy that night for part of a radio promotion. God. Yeah, I remember all that. And then when it came to Theater of Pain, I remember I'm pretty sure they played the Beacon Theater in New York. I know I have the ticket stub. I know I was there. And afterwards, there was a party for that record at a club somewhere, because I was just starting in the business, because I got an invite to that too. And I still have that stuff all stashed away somewhere. I have to find it, but it's a lot of great memories from back in those days. And it was a band that, you're such a huge Kiss fan like me. In some ways, Motley had that kind of impact on you, especially in those early years.
Of course. I mean, I remember loving Motley Crue. Like when Livewire came out, I loved it so much. And I remember when they were playing the US Festival, it was like I was going to a concert, but I was just going to watch it on cable TV, But I felt like I was going to a concert because I was that excited to see Motley Crue and Van Halen. And I remember watching it, just loving it. I probably enjoyed it more than going to a concert because you were comfortable, it sounded great, and, you weren't out in the blazing sun or something like that. But I remember it was incredible.
Yeah. All right. So because and I appreciate you doing this. You said people have been asking me ever since you joined the band, how come John's not on? And I reassured everybody. I said, look, John, I talked to John still. Obviously, you're joining a major band. The timing has to be right when they feel comfortable putting you out there a little bit. You wanted to get some shows under your belt before you spoke about being in Motley Crue, and I respect all that. And you always said to me, when I am ready to talk, I'll do the first interview with you. And I thank you because you're of your word, and you're absolutely doing that. So let's go back now, because nobody's even talked to you, because you haven't done any press about your end in Rob Zombie. So what can you tell us about that, and when did the opportunity to join Motley Crue? Because I know you've worked with those guys. Everybody knows, and following you on social, knows that you and Nikki have became very close. You've done some writing with them in the past. So when did this kind of transition first get on your radar? Take us through the earliest part of this.
Well, I've been friends with, Nikki and Tommy forever and ever and ever. I was so close to, I'm so close to Nikki. Like, we talk probably 80 times a day for, a decade. And we've done so much work together, wrote amazing. We worked on the Meatloaf song together, The Monsters Loose, 6 a.m., of course, LA Rats, The Dirt. And, but other than music, we're just always around. I mean, he was the best man at my wedding, and we always go to the mall and, ride bikes and just do total normal stuff. And so when this came about, we're talking to each other on tour, like, all right, dude, I'm going on stage. And he's like, all right, dude, I'm going on stage. I'll talk to you after the show, and blah, blah, blah. So it was, we talked pretty much every day when he was on tour, and I was on tour at the same time with the zombie thing. And we were doing Freaks on Parade. It was great, great shows, packed to the nine, and having a good time and laughing and making music. And then the tour ended, went home. Actually, I went to do some Creatures shows, my instrumental thing. And Motley was finished. They were off tour, and I was still doing some shows. And Nikki called and said, listen, Mick is going to retire, and we have these obligations from Live Nation to, we have South America booked, we have Europe booked. Do you want to come on board? And I was, absolutely. I mean, it's just like your brother asking you or something like that. And but now the hard part was, telling Rob, because we never had a negative word between us, and he's my buddy, and we make great music and great live shows together, and for 17 years, and we never really had a problem. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, life is short, and I'm being completely honest with you, Eddie. Life is short. I want to experience as much as I can in life. And I was thinking about myself, and I was like, I want to do this for me, because, I'm 51 years old at the time, and I was like, I want to do this. I want to experience this. How many times you get a new chapter in your life at this magnitude, later in life. And I talked to Rob, and, he understood. Rob is a smart, rational person. And, I mean, he wasn't psyched, but he understood. And, I think that was amazing of him. And he was just like, go get him. He was fine about it. And then, they got Riggs, who I think is a great addition. And that's who he was using with, when they Rob the early solo records, and I think it's a great addition, and they're kicking ass.
So, John, because it was announced that you were out of Zombie, and they actually did a show without you. Prior to it being announced, you were in Motley Crue. So was you being out of Zombie and not doing that show at that time, was that because you had already told Rob you were joining Motley, or did you kind of leave and then tell him? Like, what was the timeline there? How did that all work?
I told Rob before it got out in the press, but, I agreed to Nikki, and I called Rob and I said, this is what's happening. And we did a show, Louder Than Life, together. And that was my last show in Kentucky. And then they got Riggs, and we're rehearsing with him, and did the Aftershock show. And then it was announced. My time frame is not great, but then I believe it was announced a little bit after that. But it was no like bad blood or anything. It was no like, it wasn't anything bad. It wasn't dramatic or anything, and Rob is super cool. And he was like, hey, I get it, and he was cool about it.
Have you spoken to Rob at all since you've been in Motley and left the band?
To be honest, and this whole interview, I'm going to be 1,000% honest. I haven't, and I miss, talking with him and texting with him, and I just am like, I'm more worried about him not texting me back or not replying. I think that would like really break my heart. That's the thing. I think I'd be really bummed out about that. So, but I haven't. To answer your question, no, I haven't.
Well, at least you didn't join Ozzy. Then he'd have a real problem. The reason why I say that is because Rob and I always talked about that, because for the longest time, Ozzy used Rob's band as the purged Rob's band, taking members, whether it was Clufetos or any of these guys, to go join his band. And I've talked to Rob about that on the air, and he's like, yeah, at times it feels like my band is the farm system for the Ozzy band. So if you joined Ozzy, then he might have really, and I'm sure you probably had the opportunity to join Ozzy at some point, but that would have probably pushed him over the edge if you went to Ozzy. At least you went to Motley.
I mean, I got asked in the 17 years of being with Zombie, I've gotten asked to join a ton of bands. But listen, I am so close with the guys, and, with Mick too. So close with the guys. It just, something said, you got to do it. And it's just something I really wanted to do. Because, again, life is short. I want to experience everything. I don't want to be, laying in my bed at 126 years old. That's what I plan to live to be. Laying in my bed at 126 years old going, God, I wish I would have done this, that, and the other thing. But I'll probably say that to myself anyways, So, but it's been a amazing ride so far.
With making the decision to leave Zombie and go to Motley, was there any concern with you about the fact that you don't know how, like, as fans, I don't think, and maybe the band doesn't even know how long this is going to go. Like, we all know that famously Motley Crue swore they were never coming back from that farewell. And of course, like every band, they did. And they come back, and then this stadium tour, and it gets bumped and bumped and bumped because of COVID, right? And nobody knew, because of the way Motley came back, because they swore they never would, the contract and all of that, nobody knew, like, including myself, and we still don't, did Motley Crue come back just to do the stadium tour, or is it going to be a full-fledged band that's going to go forward and make records and stay around for another 10 years? If that's the scenario, then of course it's great for you, because you're in and you can make music and records and do consistent tours. But I think at the time, and it seems like that's where it's going, but at the time, nobody really knew, like, was Motley just reuniting to do the dates with Leopard in the stadiums, or is this going to be an ongoing thing? So the longevity factor of this, when it came into making that decision, did that factor in for you at all? Or were you given assurances that, like, John, you come on board and we're going to go for a while?
Well, I don't think there's really insurance with anything. It's the same thing when you get insurance with something. Hey, we had an earthquake. Oh, we don't cover earthquake, So there's not really 100% insurance with anything. But I thought, listen, it's the common phrase, life without risk, that you gotta have risk in your life. And if you don't have risk in your life, it's no life at all, I was like, well, hopefully we're going to keep rocking this. And they seem to be on fire, and they seem to be fired up, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And if it was just for South America and Europe and just 2023, I want to take that risk, and I want to go for it. But I know that this is going to keep going, and I'm guessing, but so far we've been doing a lot, and there's talks for a lot of things in the future. So hopefully we just keep going and going and going and going until, who knows, maybe the 50th anniversary, who knows, maybe, but I think that it's going to keep going because no one has talked about slowing down. So it's been great so far.
Let's talk about, you ended up, so you get this gig, it's announced you're in Motley, it's announced you're out of Zombie, and then, and I know you can't talk about the legal stuff with Mick, and it doesn't really involve you, so I respect that, but you get this band, you get in this band, and you have this gig, and then it was a while before you did your first show with the band. So you were on social media. I remember you doing like Motley Mondays where you're playing the licks and all of that.
Right.
And, look, I've known you forever. You're one of my best buds, and you're a great guy, and you don't have a mean bone in your body for anybody. So when you got into this, doing this, you immediately did nothing but respect Mick and did that online and talked about how you're going to respect his playing and all of that. So talk a little bit about that and your approach. Now you have the gig. Now you know that in a month or two, whatever it is, you're about to make your debut live with the band. What happens then? I mean, you probably already know the material, but talk about figuring out how you're going to do these songs and what the approach of staying completely in lockstep with what Mick did. But you're, at the end of the day, you're still John 5. You got a resume too. You probably want to do your thing a little bit. So how do you balance that? What's your approach leading into the first show?
So, which is an amazing question. I sat back, talked to the guys, and said, this is what I would like to do. I love Mick Mars. Mick Mars is a huge influence on me. I loved him since Livewire, since Too Fast for Love. And listening to these songs every day, a soundtrack of my life and to millions of other people. And I'm being completely honest. These solos, which I would air solo in my car, air solo at the dance, air solo in the classroom, these solos are so important to me. And I said to myself, I'm going to play these solos exactly how they were written because they deserve that respect. It's just like if you get a piece of music from like Mozart or something, you're like, I'm going to improvise on, bar 23. No, these solos are very important to me and they deserve that respect. So, and that's why I play them how they are on the record. And that's why I play the songs how they were recorded. But then, lucky enough for me, I get a guitar solo in the show to do what I do. And I thank the guys for that. I think that's wonderful. But, I just play the songs how they were recorded, because I remember going to concerts because you love those certain drum fills, or you love these certain guitar licks, and you go to the show and they're different. You're kind of like a little bummed out. So that's why I'm just giving respect to these songs.
Did you, initially when this was all announced, it seemed to be amicable at that time with Mick and the band? There were two different statements that came out that were a bit contradictory, but everything seemed kind of amicable at that point. At least we know it's not now. But did you hear from Mick when you took the gig? Have you ever had any interaction with him since you've been announced as his replacement?
Of course. Me and Mick, we talked all the time. We exchanged Christmas gifts and things like that. And when I was announced as the guitar player, he was one of the very first texts that I got. And he said, "You're going to kill it." And,
wow.
It's good. It's not like it's some stranger coming in, So we have a great respect for each other.
And tell me what that first show was like, which I wasn't in town, but you played in Atlantic City 2 nights with Def Leppard, much smaller place than you would normally be playing on this run. So tell me about going into the very first show with Motley.
Well, it's funny. Okay, so first of all, I can't believe you weren't at that show. We were like walking distance from your house. I mean, I can't believe you didn't come to the show, but you were.
No, you were like 2 hours south of where I live in New Jersey, but
I know
Atlantic City is like 2 hours south. But I know, but I was in California or something. I don't know where I was.
Yeah, everyone's like, "Is Trunk here?" I'm like, "No, but Ace Frehley's here."
Yeah, don't worry about me. You had Ace and Peter there. Nobody cares about me being there when especially with them there.
Peter's here. Oh, okay. But anyway, so we get on stage, okay, and for some reason, Eddie, if people watch this video, because there's footage of it all over the place, if you look at this, I'm like smiling the whole time and trying to hold back laughter because I can't believe it. I look at these guys and I'm like playing like Wild Side or something like that. And I'm like, it was like I was in the video or something that I've watched a billion times on TV. So it was just so much excitement. And there is that so much excitement in there. And you can see it in my face. And me and Nikki are like messing with each other and like he's stepping on my foot. And like I'm, hitting him in the nuts and stuff like that. And we're just having a great time on there. And that's what it's about. We just had a blast at that first show. And then that's exactly how it continued for, the second night and all of South America and, the Hollywood, Florida show. We just have a really good time together on stage. The same as we do off stage,
The biggest thing, and I've not seen the band yet with you in it, but the biggest thing that I noticed from the videos, and I texted you about this, that I thought was really jumped out at me, was the fact that, and I mean this with all respect to Mick, but we all know that Mick has been battling this horrible disease for many, many years, which limits his mobility. So the biggest thing that was strange for me to see for the first time in a really long time with Motley is that side of the stage left where you are, with all that movement. You're skipping around, you're moving around, you're darting back and forth on either side of the stage. We've never seen that sort of physical movement from that side of the stage in a really long time because of Mick's limitations and what he was dealing with. So that was really, Nikki moves a lot. You got Vince moving a little bit there in the middle. So seeing that everybody moving was something that really jumped out at me initially.